I'd like to call this meeting back to order. We were in camera for the first portion of the meeting. Item 3, land acknowledgement. I'd like to begin by acknowledging we are on the traditional lands of Washoba First Nation, part of Mi'kmaq, the ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Item number 4, additions or deletions to the agenda. I do have one addition to the agenda that I had missed. I'd like to add item 8.3 under presentations, Dr. Recruitment, Nancy Ellis. Could I have a motion to accept that, to amend them? Okay, moved by Counselor Phil Mooney, seconded by Counselor Lauren Cushion to amend the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Is there any more additions or deletions to the agenda as circulated? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve as amended. Moved by Counselor Lauren Cushion, seconded by Counselor Phil Mooney to approve the amended agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Uh, Item number 6, Committee of the Whole minutes from January 9th. Need an approval on those.
I approve.
Okay, moved by Counselor Daniel Muse, seconded by Counselor
Second.
Jim Baxter to approve the minutes as circulated. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Deputy Warden, you have your hand up.
Yes, I'm not certain if we skipped over 5 or not. I may have just, sorry, yes, 5. 5's there twice in the agenda. Approval of the agenda and then declarations of any conflict of interest. I'd like to declare a conflict on the Memorial Club, Monument, Committee.
All right, just remind me, Deputy Warden, that's actually item number 7 is coming up next.
Oh, sorry, I said deletions. My apologies. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So declaration of conflict interest, Counselor Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham is going to declare a conflict of interest on that section. When that item comes up, Trevor, please just notify me and I'll make sure that you're noted. All right, item number 8, presentations. Item 8.1, marine protected areas from DFO, Derek Fenton. I do believe he's on there. I think what's going to happen here is Jenny's going to promote you to a panelist. And Derek, you have the floor whenever you're ready. If you have anything to share, you should be able to share your screen with us.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm new to using Zoom, so I'm just trying to figure out everything here. Hi.
Hi, Derek.
Now, in terms of sharing my presentation, is that being the more? Where do I do that?
Derek, you should see a green.
Oh yeah, there it is.
arrow.
Yeah. One moment, please. Okay, let's go. Can everyone see that?
Marine
Yes.
Conservation Network Planning.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Just introduce myself. I'm Derek Fenton. I'm with Fisheries and Oceans Canada. I work out of the Bedford Institute of Oceanography, based in Dartmouth. Joined with me today, I believe, is Marty King, who is really the architect of all this work. So I'm glad he could join as well. He's also with the same office in Dartmouth. So sorry I can't be there with you today, but the weather kind of got in our way. My mom actually is a resident of Roseway Manor in Shelburne, and I was hoping to go see her today. So she's a little disappointed herself. Yeah, what we'll do is, I realize we only have 10 minutes, and so we're going to cover a lot of ground here of a pretty complex program. And so hoping this is a bit of an introduction, and certainly we're always available for a follow-up and more details. And as much as possible, we'll sort of zoom in on the Southwest Nova story and go from there. So really, this has been an exercise for our office, going back 15 years, and 2025 is a bit of a pivotal year for us because we've completed what we call our network plan, and we'll talk a little bit about the steps to get there. But if we start from the beginning of like, what is a marine protected area? What is the program? Marine protected areas are relatively new to the protected areas game if you compare to what we've done on land. We've had national parks and what have you for provincial parks for, going back decades and decades. And it's really only been in the last 20 years you see this pulse of activity to do more or less the same thing in the ocean. To, the purpose ultimately is the conservation of nature. And protection of wildlife for many different reasons. And this map here shows you kind of what the situation is like across the country. We've got a lot of different areas that have been put in place as protected areas under different legislation and laws. There's about 80 different blocks there of different colors. Most of them are implemented by DFO under the Oceans Act or the Fisheries Act.
Can I make an interruption here? All I see is this the very first slide.
Oh, you don't see the map?
Yeah. Are you going to go through the slides?
I'm going through the slides now. I'm not.
I only see one.
Yeah, we're not seeing presentation mode. We're seeing the layout.
All right.
There we go.
This is better.
Better, yeah.
How about now? Can you see it now?
I can, yeah.
All right, good. Sorry about that. Again, new to Zoom. So anyway, I was just mentioning this map has a lot of different areas of different colors that show what we've put in place as protected areas across the country. There's a lot of different commitments to this internationally. And so Canada is over 100 other countries have committed to this 30% protected by 2030. And currently we're at 15%. But the purpose for doing this ultimately is beyond just meeting a target like that. It's protecting really important areas and habitats in our region. So this diagram shows like the process we've been going on for the last 15 years to get towards what we call the network plan. Ultimately, the blueprint of like what sites would make sense to put as protected areas. And so I won't explain this in great detail because of the time. But if you go back to like this, the first slide there on design is ultimately what information goes into this process. Who do you talk to? What kind of what's science and economic information is part of this. So we spent the first part of this process really assembling the best available information and input from the fishing industry or research scientists on helping identify areas that will both benefit from protection and wouldn't cause much economic hardship, for example, if they were to go into place. Then we had a process of actually making the plan. And so a number of areas were nominated, and I'll show you a map in a second. And then we went through basically public consultation and working with the provinces and First Nations to review what we came up with. And 2024 was pretty pivotal because we had quite a bit of public engagement. We had an online survey, which had a lot of response. And from all that, we're now in the stage where the plan is complete. And so we're looking for a release of that plan in 2025. The purpose of this plan ultimately is to select more areas going forward for protection to help with that, that 2030 target that I mentioned, but also just more generally, as people were always asking, like, what sites are going to eventually become protected areas, and this plan will help answer that. Here is the map that sort of describes a lot of different things. One being what we have in protection now. So what is protected areas in our region are all the yellow ones, and most of them are in the offshore. A lot of these have been put in place, going back over the last 20 years, more or less one at a time. The red areas are areas that we're actively consulting on for the most part. Like we're working on these going into the regulatory process, between now and 2030 to contribute to, just become protected areas. And then the blue areas are really complete the plan. So we've got different shades of blue here. There's the dark blue would be what we call tier 1 sites, and the light blue is tier 2. Really, the distinction is the ones that are darker blue are ones that we have a lot more confidence around the ecological features, the reasons for protection. There's some support behind them from either like organizations or communities. So they tend to be the ones that are more likely to contribute to the next round of selections. All this to say, not all these areas would go for, certainly not at the same time. It's really just to help us as a federal government plan where we would go next. If we zoom into Southwest Nova, probably where you're most interested, the number of areas came forward, particularly along the coast, that would make good candidates for future conservation consideration. If you think about like the entire Nova Scotia, it's quite different from Yarmouth to the tip of Cape Breton. And so the way we settled on these sites is that like we looked at the entire coastline and the differences in habitats and just really the coastal environment, and divided it up and wanted to have a representative habitat from each of those sort of segments along the coast. And so in your part of the region, obviously there's a number of really spectacular coastal habitats, but in taking into account all the information we had available, we settled on Chebogue as probably the best candidate to go forward with, looking ahead.
Can I
Chebogue
ask a
really
question?
yeah, I'm almost done.
See.
You
Are
can't
you
see
almost
again?
done? Well,
You can't.
I'm not
you can't-
satisfied with this map and whatnot because it doesn't show our area, Nova Scotia, at all, right? And there's
No,
a lot
I'm
of
just.
out there.
Lauren, let him finish, please.
Does that map help better?
We're only seeing slide 3.
Are you serious?
That's right.
Oh my God. I'm so sorry, guys. Hold on here.
That's got it.
That's
Yeah,
got it.
Chebogue Point there now. I see that. Yeah.
Yeah, so sorry. So I can't believe. Okay. So did you see this map?
No, we just saw slide 3.
Oh, really? I'm really sorry about this, guys. Like, you have the presentation from Jenny, and so we can go back to that. Here is the slide of Southwest Nova, and then what I mentioned was like we were looking at areas to select along the coast of Nova Scotia. That's several of them, and then I think what maybe you want to talk about today is Chebogue Bay, which is an area is sort of quite a gem, ecological gem, and also important for many communities. And the reason why it was considered in our planning process is because it's so important for, as a salt marsh habitat, seabirds. You can see the reasons there, hopefully. It's an important nursery area for lobster and various fish species. It's also got a number of current uses that are, certainly, considered acceptable within most of our protected areas processes. So
What species are they?
which species are which that are fished?
Yeah, that won't be affected by this.
Yeah. So like, lobster fishing certainly wouldn't be affected. We've looked at that, across the region, and certainly lobster fishing and more, common coastal fisheries are seen as compatible with protected areas, and many of our existing protected areas have that activity that continues even once it's designated. So
Okay.
lobster fishing is certainly, compatible with a protected area. I forgot to mention earlier that, there are national standards around what is acceptable or what is not permitted within protected areas. And it's kind of complex, but I'll give it to you quickly. So mobile fishing gear, so dragging, no oil and gas, no, industrial activities that would involve dumping, for example, no activities that involve the use of pesticides or, medicine. So that's often like finfish aquaculture. So there is a list that we go by that says what can't happen. And then we look at every site's a little bit unique. And so you have to assess everything else kind of on a one-on-one basis. But I will say pretty categorically that lobster fishing is acceptable within a protected area like that. Can you see these pictures?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
Yeah, so this is an organization did some surveys in 2024, and Chabot was one of them. And I just thought I'd just throw some highlight pictures there of what they saw. As we all know, that's a pretty spectacular environment, and sort of diversity of habitats going from the shore out into the bay and around the islands there. So just a pretty interesting compilation of photos that they took. So what does it mean if you actually ever had a protected area? So we've been doing this, as I mentioned, for 20 years. We've got a lot of experience with the management of protected areas. They come with a lot of different activities. So, research and monitoring is key. So understanding what is in the area, monitoring it over the long term, looking at trends. There's a lot of interesting in obviously climate and the changing climate. So that would be a focus for a lot of our protected areas, understanding the species, habitats. So protected areas attract research and monitoring. And a lot of that research and monitoring is done by communities or by community organizations, or in some cases, the fishing industry. So that's one sort of component. We do a lot of outreach and education, often with like local organizations and local groups. Protected areas are a good sort of like source of I guess education opportunities for schools, for example. Our protected areas are actually monitored by conservation and protection, no different than the fishery is. So we have a lot of surveillance activities to see if there's anything illegal going on. And then they always come with like what we call an advisory committee. So a variety of organizations and governments and experts would sort of advise DFO on how to manage the site going forward. The key thing to remember is that once a protected area is in place, it's intended for decades. So the goal is no different than say a park on land. You've got a plan going forward on how you're going to manage that space. I did mention earlier we had a survey, an online survey that, we had over 1,100 respondents across the region. Quite a few were from Southwest Nova. And that feedback has all been put together into a report that I can send you guys the link to. And it was just kind of, the questions there varied from like, do you support this? The protection, of the marine environment, to what are your main concerns? What are your main, what benefits do you see? So that survey was wide ranging and gave a lot of interesting information, and also helped direct us around some of these sites so where we can see some support or not. In terms of next steps, like I mentioned, the plan will be hopefully be released in shortly. But the goal here is now to, this plan will be in place for the long term, and to us to continue to have conversations like we have today around which sites, could be good candidates to put into a protected area in the future. Because I missed some slides earlier, I just want to make sure I go back to show you this map. This map I was referring to in terms of yellow, blue, and red areas. So the yellow areas are our existing protected areas, and they're largely in the offshore. We don't have a lot of coastal protected areas. We have one coastal site in New Brunswick that would be, I guess, quite similar to Chabot near St. John. I guess in the interest of time, Jenny, maybe I should shut her down and see if there's some questions.
All right. If anyone has any questions, please use your raise hand feature, please. I'll start off first since I see none. Thank you very much, Derek, for your presentation. Little known fact to you is actually in the Chabot area is where I grew up. We used to operate a dairy farm. So when you're talking about the Crawley's Islands and all those other islands around there, Webster's Island, the Chabot River itself, the bird sanctuary down there, right in there. I grew up there my whole life, other than moving a little bit away, but my mom still lives there. And that is a very beautiful area, as you had mentioned. Any questions or comments?
I
I
might
see
have
Lauren.
John, yeah,
Lauren, go ahead.
okay. You say this survey was done about 1,100 people, like, did you have any meetings down in Southwest Nova Scotia, open meetings?
Yeah, no, we didn't have any open public. Well, I guess over that 15-year period, we certainly had meetings down Southwest Nova. We had some open houses, probably more in the 5 years ago period. But in terms of like industry, like with the fishing industry, we've met many times with a lot of Southwest Nova organizations, Coldwater Lobster, Brazil Rock, the Lobster Fishery Advisory Committees. Like our focus really in the last couple of years in terms of meetings down your way was more on with industry reps and but we didn't do any like public open houses, like in a hall type thing in the last couple of years.
I wonder if that wouldn't have been a good idea to do now, or is it too late? Or
That's a good suggestion, and like meetings like this help us with that because we're trying to canvas the support for having something like that. Like if particularly there's interest from community members to talk about the areas that have come out in your area we could probably do something.
right?
But we didn't, like, I guess what I'm saying is like we didn't do like a across the region open houses in every community type thing.
I see that on the chat there. Oh, sure. We had online open houses we presented to Argyle and Shelburne municipal councils, but I don't see, we certainly never did one for the municipality of Yarmouth Council.
No,
That's
it's
yeah.
Marty. Marty
Hey,
here.
Marty.
I'm Derek's colleague. Everyone, I can maybe help answer that one. We had a number of online open houses which were open to anyone that could call in, and they were fairly well attended. And then we had a request from the Argyle municipality and the Shelburne municipality. So we did presentations just like this, except they were in person at both of those municipal councils. This was during the public consultation period, and we had planned. I mean, this presentation today that Derek is giving has been in the works for quite a while. We've had quite a back and forth with Jenny, trying to find a time that worked. So the one thing I would say is that, we're at this point where we have this plan now, and, if we were to decide that we wanted to propose Chebogue as one of our next sites that we want to actually designate under the Oceans Act and develop regulations for, that would come with its own separate site-specific consultation process. So that would definitely require us to come back down, do open houses, give opportunity for the general public to kind of learn about
Okay.
what's being proposed and have feedback on the process and what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair enough. But okay, then I guess I just better keep quiet, I guess.
Actually, I was going to ask a question about the next steps, and Marty, when you had started going in there, I was wondering how that would work. So it's a whole nother process once the area is selected, that the public input and stuff like that, because like I said, that was my old stomping grounds growing up. I know a lot of people there. There may be some concerns about the existing. There's farming down there. Of course, there's the wharf along the Chebogue River, and then there's also areas like Crawley's Island, which was thought to be one of the first places where the settlers first arrived in Nova Scotia, and all that area's got a lot of history and stuff, and a lot of concerns on. And like I said, there is existing industries. I'm happy to hear that you've reached out to the different lobster fishing industries and stuff like that. So all my questions were answered, and I just heard what the next steps are. So thank you very much for that. Is there any more questions or comments from council? I don't see any.
John?
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for coming in. Interesting presentation, and you certainly piqued my interest. And we'll see where this goes from here.
Thanks very much. Apologies, I couldn't get Zoom to work. But be happy to do this any other time, if we can really, talk about a Chabog or someplace like that in further detail anytime.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate
you.
it. Sorry for the weather. You never know what it's going to be like.
Yeah, I
You
know.
never know. Thank you.
See ya.
Bye. All right, moving on to the next presentation item 8.2, the Youth Wellbeing Network, Denise Vacon and Liverness Numfor. So Jenny, if you could promote them to panelists, and as soon as they have a chance to go on.
I'm right here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Derek, or Liverness, you can go right ahead.
Thank you so much, Warden. Hi, everyone. My name is Levinus Numfor. I'm a health promoter with mental health and addictions for Nova Scotia Health, and also work with the municipality as accessibility and inclusion coordinator. So today I'll be doing a presentation, just giving an update to council on the Youth Wellbeing Network. Just going to share my screen right now. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So it's just a short presentation just to give us a background. I know we have 3 new councillors. 2 years ago, we were with council to give them an update on the Youth Wellbeing Network. We'll do some outcomes and what the youth need from council. So just to give a small update, in May of 2023, we did invite about 80 adults, 50 youths at the fire hall, asking them, what can we do to make your lives better in Yarmouth? Because, there's a talk of drug use, suicide, and everything happening. Our youths not, getting what they want to have a normal life in the community. So we had all these youths who came, and we put our heads together. We use the 8 domains like you see on the slide: places and spaces, safety, security, relationships, mental wellness. So we focused our conversation on that day under these 8 domains. After that day in August, we did produce a report, which some of you have. Jenny has shared the package. So a report was produced, and some issues for consideration at the end of the report was what the youth need from decision makers. Talking about opportunities to engage youth. They had another point about approach recreation as a public good, what the municipal government can do to them, ways in which you could engage. And then after that, we created a youth well-being network, 2023-2024, where we are made up of close to 50 participants or 50 people who work with youth serving organizations. So there are over 50 of us. We have our goals. We have a mission and a vision, which is on the tree, the goals of connecting, communicating, collaborating, and creating. Like, we do not want to duplicate services, but bringing together all these organizations together so that, we can fill in those gaps, not duplicate. Okay. Then after that, we created a work plan. Every year, I know we're working with the school calendar, but we usually take some time off during the holidays and come back in September to June. So we created a work plan, in order to guide us through this work with youth well-being, from youth engagement, to teen takeover, to helping tree. So there are so many issues which were identified on the table, and we have subcommittees that are working towards this goal. For example, the teen takeover used to be a day at the Mariners on Main where youths come in for free. They do not pay any membership, and they use the facilities for free. Now we've obtained some funding. We've hired a facilitator for that program. We do provide some snacks or food, and community groups come in during that time to engage youths. Southwest Employment Services has been there a few times to talk to the youths about employment. other agencies have come in during this time. So we pay for the Mariner staff to help take care of this program so that the youths can leave school immediately. Let's say after 3:30 p.m., it's free for the youths. It's been ongoing since September, and we do have some funding till the end of the school year. So this is one of the areas in which we've been able to engage youth, and we've been doing some counts and some surveys and numbers. We've had over 100 youths each team takeover day. So it happens every other Friday, twice a month. And each time there are numbers, it's over 100 youths. This gives us an idea that the youths want to do something. You know, if a youth want to engage in any recreational activity, he or she doesn't need to be good in basketball to be included in a team. They come in there, they do swimming, they play pool, like they lift weights, just something to take them away from using drugs and engaging in risky activity. The next part now will be the Youth Wellbeing Network outcomes. Like I said, we have a plan, we have a mission, we have a vision. So the first thing we've done is youth engagement plan. You know, we are engaging youths at school. We do have Schools Plus, adolescent outreach workers, school liaisons officers. There are a lot of youth serving organizations. Shifts for the youth who are not at school. We have Aiden's Place. So we do have representatives from all these organizations, you know, and brainstorm ways in which we can engage the youths. So there is a plan about engaging them, both youths at school and then the youths not at school. So we have an integrated approach in which we do have accountability. So we are not, like I said earlier, we are not duplicating, you know, these services, but working collaboratively, you know, towards a common goal while addressing all those identified gaps, which we had in our report of May of 2023. We've had funding of over $2 million. Some of you must have heard about the Integrated Youth Site, which is from the government, the Office of Addictions and Mental Health. There are 2 of these sites per zone. So Yarmouth was successful in applying, would have over $1.5 million, you know, to create something like a youth hub. So we already have a physical location ready, the old Centennial School in the south end of town. That site is going to be renovated. We should have 6 full-time clinicians. You know, we have services for housing, for employment, for education, so that it could be like a one-stop shop. During the Youth Wellbeing Day in 2023, one of the tables I was facilitating, the youth said they needed something in the community where if they have some mental health challenges, they would not want to be seen going to the hospital because it creates that stigma that you're going to see a mental health clinician. Now we have something in the community where they can pop in, you know, have something for recreation, occupational therapist, see a mental health clinician. They can go downstairs and talk to someone or a community member on how to get housing in the community or even how to apply for a job. So the announcement was just made last month. Yarmouth is a 8th site. There are 2 sites per zone. At the moment, we don't know when these funds will be released. We are just in the queue, but we do already have a location ready. The Boys and Girls Club is the lead agency, and we have Restorative Justice, Shift, the Youth Wellbeing Network as other partner agencies. So also had some funding for to help create something we call the helping tree. For example, if you need something for youths and you go on 211, there isn't much you're going to get from there. So we just hired someone to map out resources, you know, so that we could update our 211 database so that if you need something for, let's say, recreation for youths 10 to 15 or housing or employment, we do have all that information handy. And then I talked about the teen takeover. We have some funding where we pay a staff on Mariners on Main to help facilitate this program. The Women's Center gave some funding for us to get some food for these youths. We are currently working on having transportation because if we live outside the municipality or outside of the town of Yarmouth, you know, transportation will be a big issue. So we're trying to work on getting an extra bus to go to Paramba so that the parents could pick up the youth from there, and then one to come to Maple Grove so that the youth who stay outside of town could access these sites. And we also received community mental health funds for programming and networking. So the Youth Wellbeing Network was created 2 years ago. It's active, it's running. And then the main ask why we're doing this presentation today to council is what the youth need from you. Usually most of this programming is from age 15 to 25, but we want to calm down. There is usually that gap between youth aged 10 and 15. So what do they need from you? The first thing is to review the strategic plan with youth in mind. So what do we mean by that? We're asking council to incorporate those recommendations we had from the Youth Wellbeing Report, so that there should be an action plan to help close those recreation gaps, like I said, for youth aged 11 to 15. Council be represented at the Substance Use Awareness Partnership. I know Lauren is representing the council on that partnership where, we discuss issues on drug use in the community and do make some recommendations and advocacy. Reviewing your strategic plan with youth in mind also means, supporting affordable housing, basic income, food security policies, that support families and impact the community and environment as a whole. And the second ask is to commit to the integrated youth side. Close to $2 million is a lot of money for the government, so we want to be strategic in how we use these funds for the intended purpose. There's a lot which has been put. The application was over 80 pages long. So we want to be very meaningful in how we use these funds to engage youths in our community. And the ask is maybe, flexibility in the council to direct some resources to support this integrated youth site hub, like funding a late bus or revising public stops if needed, identifying gaps and addressing programming gaps for youth. Having council representation on the integrated youth site coalition will be a big action to take, and also trying to identify opportunities and processes to meaningfully engage youth. What we mean by that is if council maybe want to engage youths, want to hear from them, there is a way in which the youth network can help make that happen. We know the youths are always at the Mariners on Main every other Friday from 3 to whenever they close. We could work out a program for council to engage youth during that period. The active healthy living consultant for the municipality, Molly Spinney, she did an engagement with the youths late last year, asking them what activities they would want during that time when they are together in the Mariners on Main. So there are various opportunities in which council can work with the network. And at this point in time, I will be taking any questions.
Thank you very much, Liverness. Is there any questions from any council members? One thing that you mentioned, Liverness, that I really like is a one-stop shop.
Yes.
That reduces the need, as you said, one of the issues for traveling out in the municipality would be
Yes.
travel or transportation. So if we can get them there in a one-stop shop, that's actually a great idea.
Absolutely.
When I see there, Lauren, you have the
Yes,
floor.
thank you, Mr. Warden. Nevis, you and your committee have done a great job, and I enjoy sitting on that substance abuse awareness and whatnot. And there's some interesting subjects that have come up during our committees and whatnot. And I think we're moving along in a good direction. And what you propose here is certainly interesting, and I'm looking forward to us continuing this opportunity. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Warren. The latest data that has been produced from the Nova Scotia, the northern zone and the western zone, we always have the highest suicide rates in the province. So we've been putting our heads together to see how we could reduce those numbers. 2 months ago in December, we lost a student again in the community to suicide. So we've been trying to engage these youths meaningfully, asking them, what ways can we make well-being a priority? How can we make your lives flourishing in the community so that youths don't engage in drug use, have this suicide ideation, or because most of them talked about recreation, reason why we are focusing on programming that, leans towards recreation.
Okay, next one I see in the docket, and I apologize, Councillor Lauren Cushion, I didn't call you by your, call you, I just called you by your first name. My apologies for that. I try not to do that. Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Numfor. The presentation was fantastic, and just to note, that integrated youth site is a really big move forward for the area, and you know, I think at some point we should write a letter, or council should, to the government, thanking them for the funding of the site in your area. Thanks again.
Absolutely.
Excellent presentation.
Thank you so much, Deputy Warden. Absolutely. It's an opportunity which we almost lost, Deputy Warden. This ask came out 2 years ago. Unfortunately, there was no network. We had no youth serving network that could sit to put up this application. So we lost that opportunity. And then they came back in May last year with an engagement session telling us there is just one spot in the Western Zone in Bridgewater. So it was a second opportunity which we couldn't miss. So a few of us came together, put up this application, we got letters of support, and we were fighting with Kenville and Digby. There was nothing in Digby, and Kenville backed out to support our application. So we're really grateful for that, and we would appreciate that. Thank you, later, Deputy Warden.
Okay, the next one I see would be Councillor Phil Mooney.
Yeah.
I think that last you had conversation or Molly of the April. Have you had any feedback from that, Molly?
Sorry, I didn't get the question, Councillor Mooney. Yeah.
I said that you met with Molly Spinney, or Molly Spinney came in and talked to the youth. Did you have any engagement or any engagement with Molly after the conversation with the youth?
So that's Levinas, I think I caught it. So that's a follow-up question on the work Molly did with the youth. And is there
Yes.
any feedback or action from that?
Absolutely. There is feedback, Councillor Mooney. There is the youths, they like a lot of food. Some of them did give the ideas on what food should be provided. Some of them talked about making those sessions more exciting, what services they would need. So there was a feedback. Molly is trying to put together a report for us. So the network meets monthly. So this report, the survey, Molly did that engagement in December. So she's trying to put together a report for us, but summarily, she did say the youths, we had close to 120 participants from that survey, asking them how that, the team takeover night should operate.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Councillor Mooney.
All right, Levinas, as you know, we're going into the budget deliberation soon, and we don't typically make any motions or anything during presentations, but your presentation has made an impact on council, and we're always looking for ways to engage youth and keep them, quote unquote, out of trouble. I'm glad to hear that you had such a great intake of the questionnaire and stuff of what the youth would like to see. Food is always number one. Youth are growing, so
Absolutely.
unfortunately, that doesn't pass when you become older. I like food
Yeah.
as well. Council and the residents of the municipality district here, thank you very much for your presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Councillor. Thank you so much, the council and the warden.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, moving on to the next presentation, item 8.3, doctor recruitment. So Jenny, if you could please promote Nancy Ellis to a panelist, and as soon as she's online, we'll be ready, Nancy, whenever you are.
There we go. All right, I've got my buttons all working. I think everyone can hear me and see me. Great.
Yeah, I can almost see you across the lake.
Yeah, you're pretty close. I think my dog is also joining the meeting, so I apologize if he's a little noisy. He's anxious for Dad to get home.
Okay.
Let's see. So
Which
I
one?
really appreciate the invite to present this report. This report was originally for the Community Navigator Oversight Committee. And maybe I'll back up just 1 second. So for those who don't know me, my name is Nancy Ellis. I'm the community navigator for the Yarmouth region. I'm basically presenting the report that was sent out a little earlier this year. It's kind of a year-end summary for the progress and activities that were done last year. So you already have a copy of this. I've added a little bit more information and cleared things up a little bit, but I'm happy to go through it with you all now. So I'll start on the top left. So new physician starts, and this is for the year of 2024, sorry. So we had 15 physicians start in 2024. Now it's important to know that not all the physicians that started last year actually were here for any site visits. So sometimes we have physicians that join us as part of the team without even having a site visit here. So of those 15 that started, we had 1 family medicine physician join us in Yarmouth, 3 family medicine physicians joined in Clare, and we had 14 specialists join us. Now for 2025, we've also signed 3 specialists to be joining us that we know of for sure so far. So we have 1 pediatric physician joining us, 1 neurologist, and 1 hospitalist so far. And I've added some numbers to kind of give us an idea of how we're doing. So in 2024, we had 15 physicians join us, but we also had 7 losses. So we're still at a net gain of 8 physicians, which is good. Since this program, the Community Navigator program started, we're still ahead. So that's really good. We've managed to acquire 48 physicians in the Yarmouth region, and we've lost 35. So we're still at a net gain of 13 physicians so far. I'll try to go through all the acronyms as well. And I'll try to keep this short, 10 minutes. I think my oversight committee might giggle a little bit thinking that I can get everything in 10 minutes. I don't usually do that, so I'll do my best. And so let's see. So next we have our current vacancies. So right now we have 10.8 full-time equivalent positions for family medicine in our area. So we have 4.7 in Yarmouth, 4 in Weymouth, 2.4 in the Pubnico Argyle area, and 3.3 in Barrington. Everyone still see my screen properly? Monthly activities should be at the top right.
Yep, I can see it.
And so for specialists, we're still looking for an internal medicine physician. We are also still looking for an adult psychiatry physician. I believe we have a site visit set up coming up soon. We're also looking for emergency physicians, general surgeon, and nephrologist. And these are all, so the 1.1 would be a 1 full-time equivalent plus a 0.1 full-time equivalent. So 1 and a little bit. And basically a half-time or part-time nephrologist. That's a 0.5 there. A lot of the times a physician will take either part of a position or more than 1 position. So the internal medicine, general internist, sorry, lots of acronyms here. General internist will probably be 1 physician, just to give you an idea. We attended 7 conferences this year. Not all conferences were recruitment conferences, such as the OHPR conference or the Office of Healthcare Professionals Recruitment. It was more of a networking and status update and what's new kind of with that government group. So same would be with the Community Navigator Conference that I attended in Halifax. That's a yearly conference where the community navigators from across Nova Scotia get together and we kind of chat about what we're doing, what we want to do, what's working, what's not working, and share some ideas and status updates. I've proposed some conferences to attend for this coming year. Not sure if we're actually attending all of these, but these are the ones I had put on the radar for the Oversight Committee to consider. The ICEM is a conference that's being attended by our local physician recruiter, but it's an emergency medicine conference. So I had particular interest in that and thought maybe we should have really good representation there. And so moving on to the site visits. So these graphs and charts are from the Nova Scotia Health report that they send out. It's important to note that these reports are done for their fiscal year. So they start in April and they go through until March of this year. So fiscal year 2025 that you can see here, it covers up until March of this year. And I have numbers for our calendar year of 2024. So in the calendar year of 2024, we had 14 site visits. Now, that's not counting 4 physicians who joined our team who didn't come for a site visit. So that's something to keep in mind. Another thing to note is that not all site visits are only one physician. Sometimes they come as a couple. So it may be one site visit, but we have more than one physician here. So we had 22 physicians visit us in 2024. So that's something to note. For the Western region, now this little graphic you can see up here of Nova Scotia, this is the Western region. So it's practically from New Minas straight around through up until Lunenburg area. So it's a very big area that Nova Scotia Health considers the Western zone. So of that entire zone, and in their fiscal year up until December, they had reported that they had 29 site visits in that entire zone. So of 30 site visits in that entire zone from April till December, and we had 14 for the entire year, I'd say that's a pretty good chunk of the site visits for the Western zone that came here to Yarmouth. Of those 14 site visits, we had 9 signed on, accepted an offer. And I just threw this up for year-over-year comparison. So this year, I guess not including up until the end of March. So far there have been 29 site visits, and the year before it would have been 24 site visits. So more site visits this year, even though there are less site visits in Yarmouth this year than what there was last year. So we had 16 site visits last year. To date, so since 2019, since the Community Navigator Oversight program started, we've had 49 site visits to Yarmouth. And since I started in August of 2023, we've had 25 site visits. Upcoming site visits that I'm aware of, I'm sure there are more in the works, but so far that are scheduled and on the radar are, we had one in January. It was a couple again, so we had one site visit. There were 2 physicians here. One has signed an offer and will be joining us as a hospitalist, and we are working on a deal with her partner. There are a couple of site visits coming up at the end of this month, so I'll be meeting a few more physicians. Another couple as well is coming, and also in March we have one scheduled to meet a general surgeon. So part of my position, a big part of my position, as you can notice, since there were 60 plus activities and events for last year, it just listed through all the different events and activities that we had done, just to give you an idea. I highlighted a few that were of particular interest. So in January, we had a new physician meet and greet. This is a new effort where we have kind of a lunch at the hospital where physicians can meet the other new physicians that are there, because a lot of the time they only correspond through email or through paperwork and they don't actually get to meet face to face. So it's been a really great addition to their afternoons. They get to meet each other face to face and get that quality time and get to make those connections with each other as colleagues. In February, we started doing appreciation drops. So one thing I noticed when I came on board is that we do a really great job of talking about Nova Scotia and everything we have to offer, and talking about lobster and Christmas and all of our natural cultural things, but we don't particularly acknowledge other cultures and people who are coming here from other backgrounds. So one thing I wanted to do was to acknowledge different cultures and celebrate those. And so I started doing that through appreciation drops, where we celebrate different cultural holidays and special acknowledgements throughout the year. So started with the Lunar New Year. We also have the Physicians Awards. I forgot to highlight this one, but the Physicians Awards is a really important activity that we have for the area physicians, so Southwest Nova physicians, including Digby and Barrington area, where they nominate each other to be recognized for different categories that we have awards for, and we present them with awards, and it's a really great evening for them to all connect and acknowledge each other and feel acknowledged by their colleagues. So really big event. In March, we did Learn to Surf, where we taught some of our physicians and residents how to surf, because yes, you can surf in Yarmouth area. We also had a Learn Mi'kmaq language class. We have started a partner social group. So this is important because our physicians come here, but they come here with partners. And it's really important for their partners to be able to integrate into the community as well. So we started kind of a very low-key, very easy get-together of just partners to be able to talk about anything other than being a doctor and everything around being a doctor. They connect and share ideas for fun things to do in the community, resources like childcare and babysitters and that kind of thing. So it's been lots of fun. In May, we had Rural Week. Now, Rural Week is a week where medical students come here to experience what rural medicine is like. So it's a week-long event. We had, I think it was 18 students here last year. And so we take them around the community. We climbed the light out at Cape Horseshoe. We did some clinic tours in Barrington as well as Yarmouth. I hosted my first trivia night, so that was really fun. We had trivia night together, and they do a lot of activities within the hospital learning about rural medicine too. In July, we had orientation week, and that's when we welcome our new resident physicians that are incoming. We also had a Rappy Pie cooking class hosted by a local MLA, Colton LeBlanc. In September, we sent some of our residents on a Learn to Sail course in Shelburne. We partnered with Shelburne for this. In October, we had an Intro to Finances course for the residents. Great attendance. People were interested in the new retirement plan that the government had announced. We had a vineyard experience where we got to see how the vineyard is run. It's actually just 5 minutes from my house here. And it was great attendance, and we got to work in the vineyard a little bit, taste some wine, and really enjoy the local economy there. And the Heart Ride with Dr. Alanazzi. So Dr. Alanazzi was a medical student that came here in 2023. Yes, in 2023, the end of the summer in 2023. He came here. He was an avid cyclist, and he actually scheduled his rotation to be here during the Grand Fondo, if you guys are familiar with the Grand Fondo cyclist event. And so he arrived here, but unfortunately, he wasn't able to coordinate the delivery of his bicycle to be here with him so that he could participate in the Grand Fondo. So I heard about this as he attended one of our events. And so with the help of our amazing community, we were able to get him a bicycle, and he was able to participate in the Grand Fondo. And so as an act of thanks and appreciation, he wanted to come to Yarmouth again and do a cycling fundraiser to help raise money for a local charity. So we teamed up with the Yarmouth Hospital Foundation, and he did his own heart ride where he cycled nearly 200 kilometers to raise funds for the Yarmouth Hospital Foundation. So that was really fun. But yeah, so lots going on and lots of positive results so far. I'm not sure how I'm doing on time. If we should go into questions, I have a little bit more information, but I can. It's not anything super important if we want to reserve some time.
I guess what I'll do, we already have questions up. The first one I see would be Councillor Daniel.
Hi, Nancy. Thank you for the presentation. It was great to see all the work that you've been doing over the last couple of years, a year and a half. I happen to have the privilege to attend a lot of these physician things, like the physician awards, Christmas dinner, meet and greet new doctors. Well attended by a lot of physicians. I think they really appreciate the things that you and your committee are doing. 14 site visits, 9 retained. That's like a 70% retain rate. I think that's extremely beneficial for our area. That's a high number. I know there's a lot that leave, but out of 14 site visits and 9 retaining, I think that's awesome news, and I commend you on what you're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you for inviting me to present. My husband just arrived home, so Guinness is excited.
All right, the next one I see, Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham. You have the floor.
Yes, thanks for the great presentation, Ms. Ellis. And just anecdotally, like, what are some of the things you've been in contact with a number of doctors over a long period of time? What are some of the things that they're asking for that they could add on as a council or a series of councils in the region in terms of infrastructure? Like, and that could be anything. It could be hard infrastructure, soft infrastructure, services. What's your view on that, how we could move the thing forward?
Yes, thank you for the question, Deputy Warden, and it's a topic of conversation that comes up quite often. I think housing is always top of the list for everything right now. So housing definitely affects the physicians as well, especially more complicated because a lot of the physicians coming need a 10 to 15-minute response time to the hospital for certain cases. So housing within proximity to the hospital is kind of a caveat that nobody really mentions when they're talking about housing, which is really important for us. So that's one. And two would be in terms of like infrastructure, we are looking for extra spaces to put these physicians who are coming here. We do need medical office space. Proximity to the hospital again is important, and also important because the closer physicians like family doctors can be to the hospital, the easier it is for them to act as not only a family physician, but possibly also cover some ER shifts. It's a lot easier for them to transition to the hospital and back and be able to cover maybe a half day at their clinic and a half day at the hospital. So housing, of course, but definitely medical office space is on our radar. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. And just a follow-up comment. We're in the throes of putting together our strat plan for the coming 4 years, and council and staff's working hard on that. And those comments are helpful. Part of what council's done over the last little bit is we're looking at paving some of our subdivision roads. We're actively looking at that, and that seems like a good fit with what you've been saying. There's a housing need to get those subdivision lots up and sellable and so forth, and get houses built on them. That's all within a 10-minute drive to the hospital. So that's really good news and insightful for me to hear that from you. And also just public infrastructure close to the hospital. I never really thought about that how important that 10-minute distance is. So that's something for us all to keep in mind in terms of doctor recruitment. Okay, thanks. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. And I just wanted to go back to Councillor Daniel Muse for a second and just thank you for the kind comments, and also thank you for attending a lot of these events. We do appreciate the community members that are invited to the events to help give that sense of connection and integration and feeling into the community. So thank you for all your help too.
You're welcome.
Next one I see is Councillor Jim Baxter. You have the floor.
Hi, Nancy. First, thanks for your presentation. Very informative. The only additional information that I would be interested in seeing, which you probably have, but it's not in the presentation, is an analysis of the departures. Is it the people retiring that are leaving, or is it a mix of new and old? Or really, that's the only additional piece of information that I would like on this one. It would be good to see.
Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Noted for next time when I present, I can get that information to you. That information is available through Rebecca Cassidy, our physician recruitment consultant with Nova Scotia Health. I know that the 2 family physicians that we had leave the area, they did relocate. So they weren't retiring. So for 2024, they did relocate either within Nova Scotia or outside of Nova Scotia. But good question, and thank you.
I see no more questions coming up, Nancy, and on behalf of council and the residents of municipality District of Yarmouth, thank you very much for all that you do. And we know it's not an easy task because we're one small area that's competing amongst North America to try to get doctors here. But we have a very interesting place to live around here, interesting scenery, and a little slower pace of life than the big city, which I know a lot of people seem to be looking for now. But on behalf of everyone, thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. It was great to be able to clarify and explain the report in person. Thank you.
All right, you go feed Guinness now. Bye-bye. All right, that concludes the presentation part. Item number 9, old business, there's none. Item number 10, correspondence for action. Item 10.1.1, funding support for Nova Scotia Music Week. We have that in our package. Madam CEO, do you wish to speak on that a little bit?
Yes, briefly, Mr. Chair, before council moves forward on the proposed direction. So from time to time, YASTA brings forward funding requests for events, and often there's a long lead time. So this request would be for an event that, if it pleases council, can be funded from the 25-26 grants program. But there would be a requirement to advance a little bit of the money to YASTA so that they can sign contracts that are required to bring the event. This is the second time since I've been working for the municipality that we've had an opportunity to host this event, and it's very well received, and it certainly meets the objectives of YASTA.
Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham, you have the floor. You're muted.
Yeah, okay, so that event's always appreciated and always very, very successful in Yarmouth. And given that fact, I'll move that we forward to regular council for approval in the amount of $15,667. The approval of the Yarmouth and Acadian Shores ask for the funding of Music Week. Pre-approve it for the 25-26 fiscal grants, and with the understanding that there may be some monies have to flow prior to that for administrative purposes.
Okay, a motion on the floor. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councillor Phil Mooney. Any discussion on that motion? The only thing I'll say is absolutely. That's been a great event, and we're glad to see it come back to Southwest Nova. That's for sure. Seeing no more questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Correspondence for action 10.1.2, derelict boat on Johns Cove. Councillor Lauren Cushing, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Hello, this is Victoria. Hi.
Victoria, your phone.
I just have the staff sergeant, Mr. Chair, calling me. Just excuse me just for 1 second.
All right. Go ahead, Lauren.
Yeah. As you've seen in your package, there's a picture of that derelict boat that's been there on John Coe's beach. I'm guessing probably, I never noticed the date exactly. It was there probably 8 to 9 months. And as we see in the picture, you can see it was there's a derrick on it, so it was used for fishing activity in the off season, I would suggest. I know several departments had been asked to have it removed, but nobody wants to take responsibility for the removal of that boat. And I find it very frustrating that a request that something like this, threat to environment, threat to safety, it's just it's uncalled for, unsightly, and it's still there. So I'm asking if council could write letters to the different government um uh, different government agencies, such as the federal government, Department of Fisheries, Department of Highways, um, the Department of Environment. This has to be moved. It's only, my goodness, I can't believe that nobody can take responsibility of that. I would say it's going to cost no more than $1,000 to $1,500 at the very, very most to have a crane go down there, pick that boat up, put it on a flatbed, and take it to the landfill. You know, so I just find it hard to believe that nobody wants to, no department, no government department wants to take responsibility of their movement. So I certainly like for us to send a letter off to these different departments and say, let's get this done. So, thank you.
I'll comment on this. I do know that there's a specific not organization, but federal agency that takes care of them. If I'm not mistaken, that's a Canadian Coast Guard. It might not.
Oh, I forgot about that. Coast Guard too, yeah. Coast Guard said they're not taking care of them because they're not in the water.
Push it out.
Jeez. So,
I guess I'd have to ask the CAO. Do you have any insight on who council could contact on the residents' behalf to have that derelict vessel removed? Because I do know that there's programs through the federal government to remove those, and they're not administered by us, but on behalf of the residents, I'm wondering who would a letter possibly could be written to. I don't even know if it would be the port authorities. I don't know, because I do know that there's funding out there for that.
no, it's
Thank you,
definitely not the authority.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So when the correspondence came in, I knew that, this happens quite a bit around coastal communities. So I reached out to all the CAOs and clerks in the tri-counties, as well as the manager of the Yarmouth Port. And I just asked for, any cases that they had dealt with and kind of what their experience had been. And so there is everything from files that took years and years and years to get action on, to files where Transport Canada was able to identify the owner. They contacted the owner, and the owner looked after things, and things wrapped up pretty smoothly. There is there was one situation where there was a program access, federal program access, but I looked it up while I was preparing for the meeting, and it's not clear if the program got funded this fiscal year and if it'll get funded next fiscal year. I was given the name of a local contact at Transport Canada, who some of the municipalities have had really good luck with and really good collaboration. So I'm wondering if between now and council, if I call that individual and get an update on this file, because the email came in on January 23rd, and the community, to Councillor Cushing's point, the community is reaching out to all the federal agencies, and I know the boat is still there, but I thought maybe between now and council, I would reach out to Transport Canada and kind of get an update, and then maybe, if committee of the whole wants to make a provisional recommendation to council, that's not going to hurt anything. And then if I have additional information, I'll bring it forward at council.
So is someone willing to make that a provisional recommendation to the regular council that we make them?
I'll make that motion.
I think, Mr. Chair, the letter would probably it would start with Fisheries and Oceans and Transport Canada and get carbon copied to the MP, I think is where we would start.
Yes.
So you're making a provisional motion to contact the MP and who was it she just said?
CFO.
Fisheries and
Yeah,
Oceans and Coast Guard.
Recommend that to regular council. So Councillor Lauren Cushing put that motion on the floor. If you'll have a seconder.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Phil Mooney. Any more discussion on that?
Yes, I still have a.
Yes, you still have the
I
floor,
think
Councillor.
Yep. Okay. I do know if council may recall, I don't know, was last term or the first term I was a counselor that we had those derelict barges on the Inner Falls Harbor removed, and that was done through a program. And when I reached out, it was through I'm trying to think what the guy's name was, through the province who got funding from the federal government to have this done. And I forget exactly who I contacted, or actually he contacted me. Someone contacted me at a meeting we had with all three municipalities. And so there is something out there. I know that, but I just can't remember. I may look through my some of my information, see if I can't find that contact. So if that's any help at all. Thank you for the time, Mr. Warden.
All right, there's a motion on the floor. Is there any more discussion on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, I don't believe. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion appears to have passed unanimously. Item 10.1.3, Deer Management Inquiry. You all have that in your package. What is council's wishes? Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, perhaps we could ask the CAO to give us not necessarily an update, but a quick summary of where we are and potentially where the town is with that. I'm looking to collect a little more information is all.
Yeah, so the presence of a high volume of deer in and around the town of Yarmouth, Hebron, Dayton, Arcadia, even up the 340, there's definitely a lot of deer around. And for many years, the town and the municipality have been trying to collaborate with the province on ways to mitigate and to prevent the deer from being attracted to the residential development. The municipality of Yarmouth kind of backed away a little bit from the file a number of years ago, around 2019-20, following a meeting with Natural Resources where it became clear to council that Natural Resources was more or less throwing up their hands on the issue. I think that there has been work done around additional licenses during the regular hunting season to try and cull the herd a little bit more, but I'm not sure what effect it has had. My understanding, and I will defer to Councillor Mooney here, but my understanding from the town's perspective is that there is work being done more or less on a mitigation approach to the issue. I think they've done some communications to encourage residents not to feed the deer, to avoid planting deer-friendly vegetation and some things like that. But it's my understanding that some of the options that might be available to the town, similar to what the town of Truro is doing, are just not available because of the makeup of the land and the way the town of Yarmouth is developed. So, at this stage, it's kind of, a situation where, Natural Resources hasn't indicated that they're doing anything more, that's assertive or aggressive to curb the population. And I'll just stop there, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for the updates. Appreciate it.
I do know that a few years back that the Department of Natural Resources allowed people to harvest 2 deer, and one of them was the addition of the muzzleloader license. So I do know that a lot of people that hunt, like myself, have utilized that. But we have not, as per the question in here, she wanted to know what we have been doing about the deer overpopulation problem. We all know that all across different municipalities and townships across the province that they've been having this issue. This is really the first complaint that I've seen that come through in writing. But I always go back to that we should be bringing this forward to the proper authorities, because really it's a provincial Department of Natural Resources issue. We have not been working with our neighbors in the town in this regards. I do know that, but I have attended a few meetings. There's lots of ideas thrown out there on how to deal with it. But I don't know. It depends on what council wants to do, but maybe it's something as simple as a letter to the Department of Natural Resources and the minister that they look at the problem holistically across the province on mitigating ways, whether it be feeding the deer, making that because there is a lot of deer baiting that's going on, and a lot of people like the animals around, but unfortunately, they become what's the word I'm looking for?
Nuisance.
They become a nuisance, yes, and they become acquainted with humans and being fed, and that's a part of the problem. Sometimes the human race is the biggest part of the problem, and we also can be the solution by doing something as simple as that, but. I don't know which direction council wants to move on this. Councillor Mooney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the CEO alluded to, I was involved several years ago on the town side of it, and a lot, like you said, mitigation factors, Department of Public or Parks, low shrubbage that deers don't like, all those things that mitigate some of those things that deers like. We had the Department of Natural Resources come in when they talked about tranquilizing and moving deer. What I recall is tranquilizing and moving a deer at that time, I think in 2018, 2019, 2020, was about $500 an animal. So if you tranquilize the deer and you move it somewhere else, if you did that 500 times, that's like $250,000. So there's fiscal handcuffs that you put on yourself when you come to do things like that. When it comes to a cull, what do you do with carcasses? I think a cull is in $100 range because you were going to harvest some of the meats and some of the other things. So Natural Resources has thrown up their hands. I know there's been some action taken. I don't know how far they've gone on the town side, but there is a lot of deer baiting, as the warden said, and he knows that better than I do. And along that Prospect Street, Brooklyn, out on the Arcadia side, Lakeside Drive, people are still feeding them and baiting them. And I don't mean baiting to shoot, but I mean baiting to just happen around the property. So we've invaded their spots, or we've invaded their spaces, and they're just coming back to their natural habitat. So maybe I'll make a motion that we invite the Department of Natural Resources in to discuss the deer overpopulation in the municipality of the District of Yarmouth. And if we have to go back and work with our other municipal partner in the town of Yarmouth, then we can do that at another time. But let's just get them in, see what Natural Resources recommends, and go from there.
So you made a motion, if I heard you correctly, Councillor Phil Mooney, to recommend to regular council to invite Department of Natural Resources in to have a discussion?
Yes. And it might be longer than probably a 10-minute conversation, because I think there'll be a lengthy discussion, but make arrangements with the Department of Natural Resources to have a discussion about deer overpopulation.
Yeah, motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder?
I second that motion.
Seconded by Councillor Daniel Muse. Any more discussion on that? Councillor Mooney, you still have the floor.
No, I'm good. Thank you, Mr. Ward.
Any more discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I do believe that motion carried unanimously. Okay, moving on. Item 10.1.4, the Memorial Club monuments. Madam CEO?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, just a little bit of context. So I think everybody's aware that, oh, yes, Mr. Chair, I think the Deputy Warden is declaring a conflict on this one.
I
Yes.
So
am
Deputy
also,
Warden, I think the procedure would be to mute yourself and turn off your camera. Okay. The virtual stuff.
Yeah.
So the context is, at the Maple Grove School, there's an area of land that the Memorial Club has done a lot of work on around veterans recognition and memorializing our service people. And so there are individuals involved with the Memorial Club who are a little bit more versed in the relationship between the province and the municipalities. And so the Memorial Club became aware that in the service exchange deal that just wrapped up between the province and municipalities, that schools which are run by the province but owned by municipalities will become owned by the province. That was in the deal. So that when the province is done with those buildings, they won't revert back to municipalities anymore. And so the Memorial Club has a little bit of a concern around ensuring that they continue to have access to the monument. So the relationship between the Memorial Club and the municipality, as well as the school administrators, has been, I think pretty good down through the years. And so what the Memorial Club is asking is for some kind of a legal mechanism to ensure that they continue to have the rights to access the site when the land changes hands over to the province. And so in the letter, they've suggested a couple of options: a perpetual lease or an easement of access. I'm not sure what the benefits and pros and cons of each one of those are. So probably we would need some legal advice on that.
I'll make a, oh, I'm sorry.
You're muted, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Councillor Mooney.
I'll make a motion that we request legal advice on the request from the Maple Grove Memorial Club to see what we can do to ease their concerns when it comes to the transition of the land ownership.
So you're making that a recommendation to the regular council, correct?
Correct.
All right. Motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Seconded by Councillor Daniel Muse. Do I have any more discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I do believe that motion carried unanimously. And the reason why I say that is because typically we raise our hands or something like that, and I don't have everyone's picture on my screen. I do only have them on the participants on the right, so that's the reason why I asked that. So if I am corrected, if someone voted in the negative, please notify me if I do say that wrong. The joys of online meetings. Item 10.1.5, the Yarmouth County Minor Hockey Championship Tournament. Madam CEO?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what a nice surprise to find out our local hockey community is going to have an opportunity to host. So it is a late application in the current year's grant program. So if it pleases council to fund the request of $1,500 against the $30,000 required to host, it would come out of your contingency for this year, and there's $5,200 left in the contingency.
So is someone willing to make that a recommendation to regular council?
I would like to.
Go ahead,
I would make
Councillor.
that a recommendation.
All right, so Councillor Daniel Muse made a motion to remove that to regular council for approval.
Approval.
Okay.
Seconder
Second,
by Councillor Phil Mooney. Councillor Phil Mooney, you have the floor.
I am good, and I just like to echo the words of CAO. What a great opportunity to showcase our area, especially in a shoulder season for us, and fill up some hotel rooms and show them a little Yarmouth hospitality, and hope they come back again.
Absolutely. Councillor Lauren Cushing.
Thank you again, Mr. Warden. This provincial tournament is a fantastic opportunity, as Councillor Munio said, that to showcase what we have here in Yarmouth in our facility that we do now have, and also to let the people who come know what our new facility is going to be. So it's a great opportunity. The only thing I would say is their ask of $1,500 isn't a whole lot of money, but I guess that's all they asked for. So
Yeah,
you know.
I'm in the queue, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
And from what I understand, I talked to the boss yesterday, Mr. McKenzie, and they also provided $1,800 out of the room levy. So
That's right.
So we did top that up a little bit, Lauren, with some other municipal revenue. So it's just not the 1,500, but we've done pretty good, and they're quite happy with the 15 plus the 18, from what I understand.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, and I'll add to that before I turn the floor over to the deputy warden that I'm part of the MPLAT committee, and we that unanimously received approval from the MPLAT committee. So, deputy warden.
Yes, I'm gonna be voting in favor. Obviously, it's fantastic, but I think after we vote in favor of the funding request or to forward to regular council, I think we should make a motion to thank the tournament organizers for all our hard work, because it's really, really good for Yarmouth.
If that's your prerogative, Councillor or Deputy Warden, as soon as the motion that's on the floor is passed. So, is there any more discussion on the motion on the floor? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? I do believe that motion carried unanimously. Deputy Warden.
Yes, I'll move the municipality district of Yarmouth write a letter to the organizers of the hockey tournament, thanking them for their all their hard work and efforts in bringing this great event to Yarmouth.
That's a recommendation to regular council, correct?
It is, yeah.
Okay, do I have a seconder on that?
I second that.
Seconded by Councillor Daniel Muse. Discussion on that. Deputy Warden, you still have the floor.
Yeah, no, I put down my hand. I just didn't get to it quick enough.
Didn't get to it quick enough. All right. So does that mean I'm a little bit faster than the computers are? No.
You must be.
All right. Motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I believe that motion carried unanimously. Item 10.1.6. Industrial Inquiry Commission reviewing Canada Post. We all have a letter in our package.
Mr. Chair, if I could just speak to that for a minute.
Yes, go ahead, Madam CEO.
So in the correspondence from the union, they noted in there that there had been previous municipal lobbying and advocacy when the last review for Canada Post happened. So Jenny and I went digging in the minutes to see what the municipality of Yarmouth may or may not have done. And in the minutes of Wednesday, June 2016, there were two pieces of correspondence. One was a similar request for municipalities to advocate and lobby in favor of the traditional door-to-door, driveway-to-driveway service. And that was around the rollout of the community mailboxes. And then there was also an opportunity to participate in forums and surveys with FCM. So what Jenny and I think we uncovered was basically that the municipality did a little piece to make sure people were aware of what was being looked at, but didn't get involved in the issue. So for example, if Canada Post was going to be doing engagements in the community, then the municipality would, share that material on our social media and amplify it a little bit. But we couldn't find any letters or anything like that the municipality may or may not have written.
Councillor Phil Mooney.
Yeah, and I think it's a bigger issue than that. We've had over the last year or two some requests for safety around community mailboxes and some other things that we're probably not happy with, and some safety issues when how close they are to the road, parking situations over on the Grove Road by the hospital, some icy situations, water situations, non-lighted situations. Probably, I think our course would probably be the same as what the CAO just outlined, because I don't know, and you don't know after this last strike, and you probably know a little better than I do about the package side of it, Mr. Chair, and how many packages you've been getting out at your business. But there's a whole other entity to this, and that probably is something for the Federation of Canadian Municipalities or UNS FSNM. But for us to do that, I don't think it's going to make much difference on what we say.
Thank you. Deputy Warden?
Yeah, I'll agree with a lot that's been said to this point on the matter, and what I think I'm hearing is that it's a complex matter, and it's a matter really between the employer and the in the union. So I'd suggest that we take no action and move on to the next agenda item.
Is that agreeable to the rest of the council?
That be received and placed on file, Mr. Chair?
Pardon me?
That be received and placed on file?
Yep, that would be the practice. Yep,
Yeah.
receive.
I'll make a motion we receive and place on file.
Okay, a motion that we received and placed on file. Recommendation to regular council, correct?
Yeah, but sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Jim Baxter. Councillor Jim Baxter, you have your hand up.
I had my hand up, but really the reviewing the letter that was sent by the union to us, I tend to agree that it's outside of our scope, the things that they're looking for, and yeah, put it on file.
I don't disagree, but also as Councillor Phil Mooney mentioned, that's something that we really should, for those who attend the FCM in Ottawa this year, that should be something that we should maybe talk about with our colleagues. And if there's anything on that, if you talk to any federal officials or anything like that, absolutely, that's the place where that's dealt with, because this is a nationwide. So any more discussion on the motion?
Yeah, and just to add to that, Mr. Chair, like you said, at FCM this year, they'll probably have the union people for Canada Post, plus Canada Post there themselves. I know they talk about the banking issue and some other things, so that could be an opportunity for us to learn more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion, I believe, carried unanimously. All right, items 10.2 for information. 10.2.1, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing reply Chester's Code of Conduct letter. That's for your information.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I think we might have missed item 10.1.7.
Yeah.
I don't have that on my written paper.
The African Heritage Month Gala.
Deputy Warden, if you have that on your computer, could you do that portion of the meeting, please? I don't have that on my written.
I do have it. It's item 10.1.7 African Heritage Month Gala, and there's correspondence from the Greenville Hall, and it's the note says you're cordially invited to attend the Greenville Community African Heritage Month Dinner and Dance Gala as we celebrate African heritage. It's on Saturday, February 22nd, 25, and it's a dinner and dance at the Greenville Community Center Hall. Dinner's at 6:30. It's the turkey doors open at 6. The dance is at 9. And there's music, semi-formal dress, $30 a ticket. And of course, Wanda Doucette and Chuck Smith are the principals that are the principal contact people. Their phone numbers are there and so forth. And I mean, all said, it's an event in our community, a very important event, and in recognition of African Heritage Month. So I'll defer to Ms. Brooks to suggest a potential way forward.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Warden. So seating for this event was limited. It was there was an invitation distributed, but seating was limited. So we did canvass council to find out who could attend and represent the municipality. And so we do have 3 councillors and 1 guest each who would like to attend, which is 6 seats for and a whole table. So I'd be looking for a motion, Mr. Deputy Warden, for council to make a $180 contribution to the African Heritage Month celebrations and fund it out of council PR budget.
I will make that a motion.
Thank you, Daniel. Seconder?
I'll second it, actually.
Okay, seconder from John Cunningham. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you, council.
Can I say one thing?
John
Can I
Cunningham.
say one thing, Deputy Warden?
Yes, certainly.
So I'm also buying a full table. And so if there's another counselor that would like to go who didn't originally speak up, they can have my 2 seats. If not, I'm still going to buy a table and use my 2 seats as well. But there is 2 extra seats if somebody wants to change, if somebody decided to change their mind. So.
Perfect. Very much appreciated.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that, Deputy Warden. My apologies. It was not, I'm going by a paper agenda. It's not on there. And I don't have, since I'm using my computer for the video stream, I don't have 2 screens opened up. My other municipal computer is dead to the world and I don't have a charging cord here for it. So my apologies to everyone for that. All right, we'll move on to item 11, new business. 11.1, policies. 11.1.1, council remuneration policy C-029-01. Madam CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what Darlene and I recommended to council for your legislative agenda this year was around cleaning up some legacy issues with the policies. So for this particular policy, we were pulling out anything related to expenses because that's dealt with separately in your expense policy. But the other goal we wanted to accomplish was to formalize into policy the practices of the municipality. And so essentially you have a brand new policy in front of you. You have a modernized policy statement that talks about providing remuneration to the councillors for the contributions and the efforts that they bring. There was nowhere in a policy document where a baseline amount was recorded for each position on council. So in section 2.2, we're actually bringing into policy the baseline for the remuneration amount for each of the 3 offices, warden, deputy warden, and councillor. There has been a long-standing practice, I think it's over a decade now, where the warden received an additional stipend for incidental travel around representing the municipality at events specifically for the warden. And so that's $250 a month. It's been that for a long time. So that's just bringing that into policy. We are recommending that council take a look at this after each election. Just to be sure we're not missing anything. There's a piece in here in a later document that we're going to talk about that there were rule changes with Canada Revenue Agency. And so, things can change and we just feel like it should have a regular review. We also bring in the fact that the annual adjustment is in accordance with council's cost of living management policy. So that's the inflationary piece. And then we took out all of the pieces to do with expenses. So part 1 through part 6. are being eliminated because they deal with expenses, which we're going to talk about in a separate policy. So, Mr. Chair and Council, I submit that to you for your review and recommendation to Council.
Excuse me, what is council's wishes? Councillor Phil Mooney.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we accept the council remuneration policy C-029-01 and proceed to pass it on to council.
Motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Discussion on that? Councillor Phil Mooney, you still have the floor.
I just didn't lower my hand. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Seeing no more discussion, motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Councillor Daniel Muse, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, I believe that we, when we went to the African Heritage 10.1.7, we were going to talk about 10.2.1, and I believe we skipped it and went right to new business.
10.2.1, I did talk about that. Are you talking about the municipal Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing?
No, the Municipality of Chester reply code of conduct.
That's for information. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I did not ask.
Okay, sorry, my mistake.
If you have a comment, please make one.
No, that's good. Thank you. My mistake.
All right, item 11.1.2, travel expense policy T-00, T-088-20.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, as I just mentioned, the travel and expense policy we're bringing forward to council. A number of years ago, there were changes to the rules that Canada Revenue Agency applied to municipal councillors' stipends in Canada. It used to be that 1/3 of the stipend was tax-free to councillors, and it was meant to compensate councillors for their work locally in their own municipality and viewed as kind of an expense, so just a reimbursement as opposed to pure income. That rule was removed, and the municipality of Yarmouth has really never dealt with the implications of that with respect to out-of-pocket expenses for councillors. So in part 3, we're recommending that we delete the reference to the travel as being deemed to be included in the portion of your salary, because that relates back to the CRA rule, and that rule is not in place anymore. And staff did canvass municipalities across Nova Scotia to find out how this piece was being dealt with, because as it stands right now, councillors do not claim mileage for any travel inside the municipality of Yarmouth. And that is because of that old rule under CRA, which is no longer in place anymore. So in part 6 of the policy that's before you this evening, we're making a proposal that council be compensated for their travel in the mechanisms provided. So obviously in accordance with your conference policy, for sure. Anything that council members' attendance is authorized or requested by council. Your committee work, if the committee has a policy or a provision to pay travel and expenses, then you would apply there first. But if not, then you would make your expense claim to the municipality of Yarmouth. If the councillor is attending on behalf of the municipality at the request of the warden in his or her absence, or at the request of the warden because it's something specific to the district you represent, that be an allowable expense. Any travel expenses inside the municipality that results as a matter of your training and professional development policy. So your mileage to a facility inside the municipality, like at Burridge or something like that, to receive training and professional development. The only prohibition that we're recommending is that mileage to and from the administration building for committee of the whole and council not qualify, and it's because under CRA that's deemed to be your place of work and that's deemed to be your job to come to council and committee of the whole. Then, in addition to that, the Occupational Health and Safety Committee has been doing some work around managing the expectations in terms of how far people are expected to travel, depending on their workday. So in 7.1.3, those thresholds are being provided, which respect health and safety protocols. In Part 8.1, there's just a little bit of modernization of the language. In 8.1.5, where there are exceptions to any requirement to pay the municipality back, we're just recommending that council approve requests from councillors and the CAO approve the requests from staff. And then 8.2.1, we are bringing in a provision for staff and councillors who have certain dietary needs because of religious or medical reasons may incur additional food expenses. And so we're bringing in a provision to allow those to be expensed. And then I think finally, we're getting there. In 8.2.2, in the work that we've been doing, we did canvass municipalities, and the per diem amounts for lunch and for dinner were quite low. So we're recommending that lunch go from $20 to $25 and that dinner go from $35 to $45. In Part 9, we're recommending the removal of the provision of cash. We don't do things in cash anymore, but if a councillor has to pay for a registration far in advance of the event, we're just bringing into policy the practice that we do reimburse for that at the time the councillor incurs the expense. FCM's a perfect example. Councillors are incurring expenses now for FCM, but it's not going to happen until May, June. And so we're just bringing into practice bringing into policy the practice of compensating for those expenses now. There have been times, council, in 9.3 where expense claims have lagged quite a bit, and it can impact kind of where we're going with financial management and expense reporting back to the province. So we are bringing into policy just the requirement in 9.3 that people get them in within a month or so. And then finally, in Part 11, we're just tying anything to do with the misappropriation of funds to progressive discipline for employees and the councillor's code of conduct. And that is a summary of the amendments before you this evening, Mr. Chair. Oh, you're muted, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I muted my dogs for getting a little bit antsy. All right, is there any discussion on the updated travel and expense policy? If not, is someone willing to make a motion to recommend to regular council its approval?
I'll make that a motion that with the travel expenses policy T-088-20 that we move to regular council for approval.
Okay, motion on the floor by Councillor Daniel Muse. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Lauren Cushion. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Is the deputy warden back?
Yeah, he's right there.
Oh, he is there. Okay. Moving on to item 11.1.3, the fees policy F-044-02.
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. When Darlene and I recommended the legislative agenda to council, we did let you know that the fees policy was going to come twice this year. And it's because there are some fees being recommended this evening, which relate specifically back to expenses the municipalities incurring now. And so we didn't want to wait for the budget in May because there are transactions rolling through. So, Mr. Chair, on page 2, under civic number signs, the draft policy before you is recommending that the cost for replacement civic number signs. So in the municipality of Yarmouth, anybody who's never had a civic number sign gets their first one for free. But then if they come back and they need a replacement, we do charge just our cost back out to them. So in the draft before you tonight, we were recommending it went from $16.50 to $18.50. We just happened to get an invoice for an order this week, and $18.50 isn't going to quite cover it. So we're recommending $20 to cover it. So that would be a change from what's in your package from $18.50 to $20. And then the posts as well. So they've gone up again since we did this research. So the posts were 23. We want to encourage citizens to post their civic number sign. So the posts actually cost more money than what we are proposing for the first post. So somebody comes in for the first time, they get their blue sign for free, and they get a deal on their post. We're recommending $25. If they need more posts or a replacement post, it's actually $57 that we're going to need to cover our costs. So that's the civic number signs. Similar to the private road signs. So it costs $74 and change for those, $74.75. So we're recommending that to council. And then for subdivision fees, again, you know, all of the processes required to approve and finalize a subdivision are going up. $2,000 is not enough money anymore. We're going behind on that. So we're recommending $2,500 for that. And then finally, the street disturbance permit. So we used to take $1,000, and that would provide the municipality with a deposit so that if somebody disturbed the street and they didn't restore it properly and the municipality had to go back and rectify it, there were funds available to do that. Well, $1,000 doesn't do much work on a road anymore. So we're recommending it goes from $1,000 to $2,000. And finally, on the very last page, page 6, under web inquiries, we're just clarifying that $5 fee for web inquiries on tax balances is plus HST because it does attract HST. So those are the recommendations for that policy amendment, Mr. Chair.
So any comments on the fees policy F-044-02? I don't see any. So is anyone willing to make a recommendation to regular council the approval of the updated fees policy?
Make that a motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay, moved by Councillor Phil Mooney. Do I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Seconded by Councillor Jim Baxter. Any discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Some of you may have heard me complain that I had an old agenda. I did have the old agenda, but I did find the new one on the back of the thing that I moved. So I'm throwing myself under the bus on that one. Okay, item number 11.1.4, the mobile device policy M-682-25. Madam CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a brand new policy, council bringing into policy what our practice is. So it basically sets out the parameters under which mobile devices will be issued to council and staff and the mechanisms available for compensating for those expenses. So basically it sets out a choice. An individual can use their own device and be compensated an amount per month that's equal to what the municipality's cost for the service would be. Or if it is deemed that they need to have a device, that they could choose to have a municipally owned device that's under the municipal plan. And then there are terms and conditions around the appropriate use of that. There, in part 6, we talk about what happens if it's damaged or stolen. We specifically set out requirements around using your mobile device when you're driving so that we all obey the law. We talk about expectations in part 8 about returning. We talk about unacceptable use in terms of being used to go against a council policy or municipal regulation or provincial or federal law. And then we talk about security. We want people to be aware that it is impossible for the municipality to guarantee complete security in all of the activities that you might undertake under a mobile device, and then some instructions on how to mitigate risk there. We talk about the requirement for the municipality to do certain disclosures with respect to international travel, which is called Personal Information International Disclosure Protection Act. And that's basically if a municipal employee or councillor is taking a device that is part of their municipal business and they're leaving the country, we just have to disclose it in case there's ever an issue. We talk about the impact of freedom of information and protection of privacy around the use of the electronic device. And that's it. So it's brand new. It's bringing into policy what our practices are and submitted to council for consideration.
I will say this is long time coming, and everything that we've been typically doing with the mobile devices, whether they're personally owned or municipally owned, that's what we've been pretty well doing. So I don't know if you guys wrote this from scratch or got help from other municipal mobile device policies, but I think it's a good one. I especially like the part in there about driving, about the responsibility, and that you're quoting the Motor Vehicle Act and return unacceptable use. That should be in there as well. I like it, and I don't know if there's any other comments. Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham.
Yeah, I'll move that the municipality district of Yarmouth move to regular council for approval of mobile device policy M-682-25.
Okay, a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Seconded.
Seconded by Councillor Lauren Cushion is who I heard.
Perfect.
Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Madam CEO, since I don't have access to my computer in our council procedural policy, have we gone over the time limit for a committee of the whole?
Well, it's committee of the whole is 3 hours, and we're at 7:02, and we did start at 4. So if you want to count the in-camera legal portion, then I suppose we are at 3 hours, Mr. Chair, and we have probably another half hour to go.
So with that being said, I need a motion to extend the meeting for 1 hour. Moved by Deputy Warden. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Phil Mooney. A motion on the floor to extend the committee of the whole meeting by 1 hour. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. All right, moving on. Item 11.2, request for decision, the agenda and minute software. Madam CEO?
I'm not going to say a whole lot about this. Jenny is leading this project. I will just kind of reiterate that this is in part of our work on around accessibility. And so it's bringing a software product to us that will work with our new website and allow better access to agendas, minutes, and agenda documents. There was a question about the recommendation with eScribe on if the municipality decided to go in a different direction, how we would get out of the contract. And Jenny sent me the contract, and I'm just looking for that notice period.
That was me, if I'm correct.
You did ask that. Jenny, jump in if you know it exactly off the top of your head. Oh, termination. If the agreement is terminated by the customer during the first year for any other reason other than material breach, then we have to pay the first year subscription. Years 2 and then it's a declining balance on the remaining years of the subscription if we want out.
Okay. Because actually I'd written that on my old paper, that question, and that's the only reason why I knew when I asked it back then. All right, so councillors, you have a request for a decision there written for you. What is your pleasure? So there is a recommended motion in there, and that would be a recommendation to regular council. And what is council's pleasure? Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham.
Right, I'll move that, whereas the municipality district of Yarmouth is seeking to modernize and enhance its digital infrastructure in a cost-effective manner that minimizes the impact on taxpayers. And whereas the municipality's current agenda and minute software is being phased out and is no longer compatible with the new municipal website. And whereas the council for the district of Yarmouth is committed to ensuring compliance with accessibility legislation and addressing the needs of individuals with barriers, therefore be it resolved that the municipality of the district of Yarmouth approve the proposal to adopt the East Drive Digital Readiness Bundle. Further be it resolved that an amount of $14,215 be allocated in the 25-26 operating budget for the purchase of the software. Further be it resolved that the CAO be instructed to initiate implementation supporting an April 1 rollout of the system.
Motion on the floor, seconder,
Second.
seconded by Councillor Jim Baxter. Any discussion on that? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously, I believe. All right, item number 12, public comments for councillors and anyone who may watch this. This was sort of a last minute thing that we held this meeting virtually, but we did reach out via Facebook and in the media that if people wanted to participate and have a comment to council, they were able to. The cutoff time was 2 o'clock to contact the recording secretary, Jenny Porter. So I have to ask the recording secretary, did we have any requests?
No, I did not receive any request.
Okay, moving on. I'd entertain a motion. We have one item left in camera. I'd entertain a motion to take a 5-minute recess and then reconvene in 5 minutes.
Motion to take a 5-minute recess and reconvene in 5 minutes.
Okay, a motion by Councillor Jim Baxter. I have a seconder.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Lauren Cushion. Motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously.